Hi, everybody, and welcome back to our continuing July video series in celebration of Disability Pride Month and in commemoration of the anniversary of the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act. This is Chris Nusbaum, project coordinator for the Bridges Technical Assistance Center. And I have the privilege of being joined by not just one, but two wonderful people. Of course, our project director is here, Carlton Walker, and she'll be joining us in a few minutes as the video goes along. But also, we have a very special guest to provide some unique perspective to add on to some things that we've been talking about throughout this series, and that is Eric Bridges, who is new to his current position, but definitely not new to the blind community or the leadership thereof. And he is now, as of about 3 months ago, the president and CEO of the American Foundation for the Blind. Hi, Eric. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Well, thanks so much for having me. Happy to be here. The name Bridges in your name it's a good one.
Yeah, I hadn't made the connection, but you're right. So, Eric, for those who may be unfamiliar, for the like 3 people watching who might not know your name, give us a little backstory on you. What's your background? How did you come to your present position?
So I've lived in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area for the last 22 years. Originally, I'm from the great state of Iowa, go Hawkeyes, and came out as a lot of young people do to the DC area for an opportunity to have a congressional internship in the summer of 2000, 10th anniversary of the signing of the ADA. And I got to do some really cool stuff that summer with Senator Harkin, who happened to be the senator that I interned for, a key champion of the ADA, as a matter of fact. And subsequently fell in love with DC and decided I want to get back out here. And got a job with National Industries for the Blind at their headquarters in Alexandria right after graduation and moved out here. And have been out here ever since in different roles with different organizations, ranging from, like I said, National Industries for the Blind, where I worked on public policy and some other stuff. Worked on Capitol Hill as a Legis Fellow for the Brookings Institution, worked for a member of the House of Representatives from Minnesota named John Klein, and briefed him on any number of issue areas, and spent the better part of the last 16 years working with the American Council of the Blind, doing advocacy, governmental affairs, developing relationships with corporate America, and then really for the last better part of 7-8 years leading the day-to-day functions of the org as executive director. And so during that time period, actually since moving out here and working for NIB, this whole time I've worked pretty closely with the American Foundation for the Blind on key public policy areas ranging from employment to technology. And really technology is all things. It's the one huge umbrella that covers everything these days. You can't escape it. But was recruited and took this role about 3 months ago now, as you said. Really excited to be at AFB, helping to get the organization oriented toward its next 100 years. The organization's been around for 102 years. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so I want to hit that before we get into the ADA topic. The ADA, or AFB rather, has been around, as you said, for 102 years. So it is real, legendary organization in this space, and rightly so. So where is the AFB now? What role does it play within the blind community in the blindness field? And also I want to mention that as we're recording today, it's June 27th, which is a big day for our whole community, but especially for the American Foundation for the Blind, because we are celebrating Helen Keller's birthday. So I'll just use all of that as a launching off point to just do the general overview of AFB.
We were so fortunate at AFB to have Helen's great work for 40 years representing AFB and, to a certain degree, the American blindness advocacy field abroad, as she often would travel overseas. Just amazing the amount of work that she was able to do, the impact that she was able to make on behalf of our community in this country, but also help with greater levels of independence of individuals who are blind or have low vision around the world, just by being this sort of force of nature that she was. I would say, Chris, it's fascinating. I'm in this job in 2023. We're just coming out of a pandemic. AFB was founded just after the other pandemic
Oh, yeah.
that occurred. And so in looking at the work that we do today, a lot of it is centered around public policy and research. Those two areas of AFB have been a couple of our hallmarks in terms of where we fit in the field or the continuum of blindness organizations. We're not a consumer organization. We work closely with both ACB and NFB as well as the blind and veterans. But a lot of what we've done historically and what we do today is research the areas where there are pain points for our community. In April, literally just as I was coming aboard at AFB, we published a barriers to digital inclusion study that really looked at those barriers that folks in our community are still facing today, whether that's website accessibility or app accessibility, issues pertaining to those areas in life where I think we can all agree there's been a tremendous amount of advancement over the last 10 to 15 years, but there's still a lot of pain points when you start to look at different areas of our economy and where we're interacting on websites or apps, travel sites, airline sites, certain e-commerce sites as well, and apps, and the ever-changing world of apps. And sort of the game of Russian roulette that you play when installing a new update of an app on your phone
Yeah.
to see if it changes the user interface in a way that makes it harder for you to engage and be productive. So those areas, clearly hallmarks. The Blind Leaders Development Program is another key area for AFB over the last couple of years, where we pair up blind or low vision mentors in the workforce with mentees who are at least 3 years into their career to have them learn all sorts of different skills, be able to network with that group. We've graduated 100 of these individuals over the last couple of years, and it's been an absolute success and has allowed for folks to grow in their skills as professionals. And I would say equally as important, allow them to navigate the business world and network with peers from other organizations, and to show that there are ways to continue on even mid-career to advance your career. That is still a sore point in our field, as I'm sure you and Carlton are keenly aware, unfortunately. And so we're trying to deal with that. And then really Talent Lab, which gets back to some of this digital inclusion and accessibility. It's really having curriculum set up for interns and blind apprentices to learn digital accessibility and engineering. And it really is helping to equip these individuals that enter into the program to become accessibility program managers at tech companies or other companies in corporate America that are putting a real value on ensuring that their digital footprint is accessible for the incoming customer. So those are just some of the things that we're working on today.
Sounds good.
So I just want to go back and pivot then from here to the ADA itself. So the ADA has been around for 33 years now, and it was really hoped that the ADA would be maybe not a cure-all, but really a new beginning for people with disabilities. In some ways, it has been and is, and it's changed a lot of things for the better. But what we've heard from a lot of the people that we've interviewed is there's still a lot of work left to do, despite the fact that we have this really sweeping legislation in place. You've touched on some of that already, but coming as you have from first the advocacy world and now this research and service delivery world, what's the impact there, pro and con? What has the ADA changed for the better, and what do we still have to do?
So my take on this, just Eric Bridges' take, and living in the world as a blind person, and my wife is also blind. I think the ADA has been helpful in as much as it's helped to, I think, educate to a certain extent employers about individuals with disabilities. We possess the capacity to do this work and to allow for accommodations to be made for us in the workplace to compete on an equal playing field in some regards. I do think there is still a significant hurdle that we have, and I think it extends back into the educational system, and I would argue even into parenting.
Yeah.
And that is, there are not enough of us individuals that can't see working in fields with our sighted colleagues. Yes, we have folks who are blind working in all of the different sectors of our economy, be it healthcare or finance or academia. But it strikes me that it's not proportionate. I feel like there are still too many of us that are in social services, in law, and that's not a bad thing all by itself, right? These are good fields to be in. But I feel as though at times young blind students are not encouraged to go into business or into science or into these other areas of study that would lead you into a career field where there is a lot of advancement and a lot of, frankly, money to be made. And so here I am, a leader of a blindness organization, saying, but I witnessed that as I was going through the educational system, high school in particular, being advised to look at social work. I wanted really nothing to do with social work. I wanted to get into sportscasting. I wanted to get a journalism degree, which I ultimately did from the University of Iowa. And it wasn't that I didn't like social workers or social work, as it were, but that was not going to be something that interested me, an area that really got my juices flowing, right? And so I also think that parenting and parents have the ability to be the very best advocates for their children as they're growing up, to talk with them about what they're interested in, encouraging to get involved in different things. I got to go to sports camps. I got to be an intern at a radio station where I got to DJ midnight, right? I got to have these experiences that show me, hey, I can do this. And the general public still is not seeing enough of us in roles that they do every day. And I think that has an impact on society's continued perception of our capability and expectations for us. I think it's absolutely got better. I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, but we still have a lot more work to do.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Eric, and I love how you highlighted. I'm just going to say it again because it was so good. Social work, law, whatever, those are great fields. And if that's what feeds your soul, great. But for you, it didn't feed your soul, and it wasn't appropriate to push you into that direction. I hear a lot of times from parents, a lot of parents, some teachers too. Well, what's a good college for a blind student? What's a good major for a blind student? Well, let's talk to the kid because that's really the answer.
Yeah, there's no magic wand.
I don't know.
Yeah, no one size fits all. One size fits all is so not true, but especially here. I also want to take this opportunity to thank AFB because AFB is part of the reason Bridges is in existence. We use the access engagement studies and the flattening accessibility studies that from AFB to help show the need for our service. So, hey, students out there, research is important. It's valuable and it's meaningful. It really has real world effects. So we're talking about the ADA. Is there any, of course, when it started, it was more built environment type of work. Y'all are too, Chris wasn't born, you're young. But I remember when the ADA came out and there was all sorts of rending of clothes and gnashing of teeth. Oh my goodness, the world's going to come to an end when we have to have ramps. And of course it didn't. In fact, what we got nice stroll instead of the umbrella strollers that were all that you really had when I was growing up. Nobody's gonna have that big old carriage thing. But we got some nice strollers that you can have your car seat go in and come out of. You can't carry one of those darn things upstairs. We have wheeled luggage. How many of us don't love our wheeled luggage? So I've seen some old the benefits of disability oriented things that maybe came because of a disability, closed caption, audio described movies, things like this. How are we doing, and how do you have any advice for our students, their parents, teachers, in pushing that forward with regard to our technology environment, which frankly is really huge?
It's the entire world is technology. You can't literally, you can't escape technology.
Yeah.
It touches education, entertainment, employment, all of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. And I am so overcome when I look back at the advancement that has been made, in particular with regard to the accessibility of commercially available technology. Because for a really, really long time, this community of ours had to almost solely rely upon assistive technology.
Mm-hmm.
And assistive technology still to this day plays a critical role in using JAWS right now to access Zoom, right? To be able to talk with you all. And that stuff is critical. The advent of the iPhone was an absolute game changer and has allowed for us to essentially carry a fairly high-powered computer in our pocket with all kinds of apps.
Yeah.
Transportation and the advent of rideshare technology with Uber and Lyft really has been transformational for our community because it's provided us a greater level of independence and frankly spontaneity, and for us to be able to pick and choose when we want to go places. There are downsides, the drivers not wanting to take individuals that have service animals, and that's something that unfortunately I encounter and my wife does as well. And the prospect of autonomous vehicles and the ability to remove the driver and their fear or just not wanting to have a dog in their vehicle, is something that is quite appealing to many of us. Again, these are all really, I think, valuable advancements that have helped to increase our productivity, our quality of life. And you mentioned audio description with regard to movies and TV shows. That's something that I care very deeply about. And it also extends into education.
Yes.
Educational videos and things of that nature. These are all very positive things. Unfortunately, what it's going to take from us moving forward is continued advocacy. And I don't say that unfortunately as in like this is our way of life. Whether we like it or not, the world was not built for us. And so that requires us to stand up when necessary and advocate on behalf of our organizations, on behalf of our children, and let folks know that whatever the status quo is now is probably not acceptable moving forward, and that we need more, right?
Absolutely.
I have a saying, all I want is everything.
I love it.
Oh, I love that.
But I know it's not all going to happen tomorrow, but I still want everything. I want everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't I?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a balance, because if we look back 100 years, blind child 100 years versus blind child in school today, I do a lot of advocacy for students and families, and we're pulling our hair out. But then I think, okay, 100 years ago, the doors were slammed shut. I mean, it was so different. So we have to somehow buoy ourselves with what we've attained and invigorate ourselves to move forward.
Yeah, I think our community does not do a good job of celebrating success.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree with that. Absolutely.
And I sort of get it, right? As blind people, you have to be able to adapt. Otherwise, you will just lose your mind. The amount of extra time that we wait for things, for example, the amount of things that are not, even to this day, not available right out of the box for us.
Right.
That's gotten better, but it's not what it should be, right?
Right.
Having to wait literally at a bus stop, at a train station, at an airport for something to become accessible to us so that we can use it. And it's part of us. I want for all that stuff to quicken a little more.
Yes.
I just do.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. I wish we could keep you all day, but I know how busy you are. Looking forward to what's coming up. We talked before the recording started, so for folks who weren't here when we were talking, Eric is going to be representing the American Foundation for the Blind at both the American Council of the Blind and the National Federation of the Blind conventions in a week. And I hope his arms don't get tired because this man's flying everywhere. But we're very happy to have him, and I'll be down in Texas. Can't wait to see you there.
I can't wait either.
As will I. And that is Eric Bridges. Visit afb.org for all things American Foundation for the Blind, and for all things Bridges. You can follow us on all of our social media. You can visit our website, and you can always, if you need help with anything related to advocacy, related to alternative techniques, and any of the wide array of topics we've been talking about in this video or any of the videos in this series, you can email us at helpdesk@imagemd.org. That's helpdesk@imagemd.org.